In Howie Roseman, we trust. I thought we trusted Howie Roseman. I'm getting some bad vibes as we get set for NFL free agency in the man that has built two Super Bowl teams in the last 5 years. We're going to talk Eagles free agency here and the tough task that Howie Roseman has ahead of him. Sixers huge comeback win. We'll talk that as well. I got a little fun little side thing I did this weekend. Saturday Night Live, Travis Kelce wise. So we're going to talk that as well. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow. Turn notifications on all social media platforms. We greatly appreciate that. But head over to the DSM Media YouTube page. Hit the like and the subscribe there. Turn those notifications on. It's the best place to get interactive with the show, to drop your comments on today's topics, Eagles, Sixers, well, Saturday Night Live. We got a little bit of everything on the agenda today. I'm looking forward to today's conversation because I want to get back. Friday, I wanted to talk Eagles. But Friday show, and shout out to everybody that tuned in Friday. It was an excellent show, a lot of great interaction. I had a lot of fun talking Sixers there, but we did not really get into the start of the Eagles conversation I wanted to have. So we're going to start with Eagles and close with Sixers. That way I get at least some of this Eagles conversation underway here. And it starts and centers around Howie Roseman, the conversation that I want to have today. And Howie Roseman and what he has done over the last 5, 10 years, whatever. We joke around with the "in Howie we trust," comment. We should have faith in Howie Roseman. And everybody was voting Howie Roseman Executive of the Year, talking so highly of Howie and how quickly he turned this organization around. It didn't really take like a 5-year rebuild. It was a 1-year retool. And we go from 2020 right into the playoffs in 2021 and right to the Super Bowl in 2022. All the great moves he made to get us to this point. The trades, the drafting, everything that Howie Roseman did. And now all of a sudden I'm getting a very negative energy vibe from the Eagles fan base. We literally were just in the Super Bowl, 3 weeks ago? 4 weeks ago? It's a Philly thing. Was just a thing 4 weeks ago. And yes, this offseason, this free agency period, the Eagles have their work. Howie Roseman has his work cut out for him. I get that. There are a lot of key free agents, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Definitely. But all of a sudden, now that there's all these free agents that have to be re-signed or replaced, I kind of getting the vibe that Eagles fans have lost faith in Howie Roseman. And that's my problem right now. Like, what has Howie Roseman done in the last 5 to 7 years, 5 to 10 years, 4 to 5 years, whatever you want to count? What has he done to not give you the faith that he's going to find a way to put a quality football team? Now, I'm not saying we're going to go right back to the Super Bowl next year. There are a lot of moves. We got a tough schedule next year. But to think that Howie Roseman is just going to bomb this offseason, that's the vibe I'm getting right now. Howie Roseman is one of the smartest GMs in football. He manages a cap well. He makes great trades. He, unlike a lot of GMs in all sports, knows when to say, peace. Your time is up here in Philly. It goes to, I put this little joke up here, Brandon Graham, don't leave us. We'll get into him in a second. But Howie Roseman knows when to walk away. Maybe Brandon Graham, it's time to walk away. Maybe. We'll get into that in a second. But I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around why the Eagles fan base just is so down on Howie so quickly. We were literally just in the Super Bowl 4 weeks ago. And now kind of vibing out like on Twitter there that no one cares. How soon does Jalen Hurts' deal get done? I don't think it's the first move that happens. I think you're going to see whether it's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Javon Harden, you're going to see 2 or 3 of the key Eagles players get locked up first. Or whatever, Howie always makes one big splash deal. He's always known to make a big trade or a big free agency signing. That stuff's going to happen. Jalen Hurts will get done before training camp, but I think that drags on a little bit because Howie's got to figure out how to get the team built around right now. He's got a little bit of a cushion with Jalen. Jalen Hurts isn't going anywhere. Jalen Hurts is getting his big deal. Howie Roseman needs to figure out 2023 before he worries about the Jalen Hurts' deal. And Jalen Hurts' contract, it's going to be huge. It's going to be massive. But it won't affect the 2023 salary cap if it's structured correctly or structured the proper way. So it shouldn't affect how Howie manages building this team for next year. Now, big picture it will, but Darius Slay contract, it's a new deal I'm hearing. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the 2 things that Howie could do. Well, one of the few things Howie could do to free up more cap space is restructuring the Darius Slay. Now, I've said it, and I don't want to see it, but I'll say it. There's a chance that they find a way to trade Darius. They move on from Darius Slay. I mean, he's going to be 32, I think, or he is 32. He'll be 33. He's got a big cap hit. No, it doesn't say on. I got Sport Track up right now. It doesn't say his age. I would not think that they're at least not going to make a few phone calls on Darius Slay to see if they can move on from him. And whatever. I mean, it would suck. I love Darius Slay, but it's a possibility. We'll get to running back. I'll just say, what do you want to do with running back? So I got in a conversation with my man George. He's a big fan of the show, a big friend of mine. This weekend we had a back and forth on the running back situation. What's up, Mitch? How you doing? It's gonna be crazy, Mitch. But the problem, Mitch, is that everybody's losing faith in Howie Roseman so quickly, and I don't understand it. I don't know about you guys, Joe, Mitch. You guys are on Twitter a lot. I feel like all of a sudden it went from in Howie we trust to Howie's not going to be able to get the job done this offseason. But anyway, Joe, the running back here, my man George and I, we were talking, and I said it in one of my short videos I did that losing Miles Sanders this offseason, which we probably will. I know Miles says he wants to come back, but Howie's not going to spend $7, $8, $9 million a year. Miles Sanders will probably get in free agency a 3-year, $23 million deal, 4-year, $28 million deal, something like that. And I think that's going to price him out of Philly. And that's okay, I guess. I understand why it's pricing him out. I understand the Eagles are high on Kenneth Gainwell. I don't think Kenneth Gainwell can be a 3-down back. But Miles Sanders, 1,300 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns last year. You don't just easily replace that. Kenneth Gainwell and a rookie, I know you guys are all saying draft a rookie, it's a deep class. You're not going to just instantly replace 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. I won't lie. I don't know who Gibbs is. I don't follow college football. I don't even worry about the draft until we're 2 weeks out from the draft. I don't do all these mock drafts. I mean, we'll do one on this show, but we'll do one on this show like the day before the draft because I don't get into it. I don't know all these draft prospects. I do know what I'm hearing and reading that it's deep. But Miles Sanders is being underlooked as how important. So there's going to be a lot of losses this offseason. A lot of guys changing teams leaving the Eagles, going elsewhere. A lot of new faces in here. But losing a 1,300-yard rusher with 11 touchdowns, it's going to be a big deal. Now, I understand the philosophy behind why he's got to go. It doesn't mean I have to like it. And it doesn't have to mean, I know we've got a great offensive line. We got Jalen Hurts and his rushing ability. So it should hypothetically be a plug-and-play system. But if you go Kenneth Gainwell and a rookie as your 1-2 punch, Gainwell can't be a 3-down back, in my opinion. And a rookie, how many rookie running backs, unless you're like one of the elite guys, really steps in and plays great, understands blocking assignments. Running backs in this system need to be able to block. Miles Sanders is a solid blocker. Kenneth Gainwell, not so much. So there's a lot in my mind that says losing Miles Sanders this offseason is going to be brutal. It's going to be a tough replacement. Now, can you get by with, my man George messaged me and said Madison, from the backup from Minnesota. Sure. I mean, I think he might be cheaper than Miles Sanders. He also might be looking for a role on a team that's going to be a 3-down back. Would be paying Hunt be cheaper than Sanders? Honestly, I'm not a Kareem Hunt fan. I don't think Kareem Hunt's a 3-down back either. You need a 3-down back. And then use Kenneth Gainwell as your change of pace back. Really. And Kareem Hunt's never, I don't know if he's capable of being a 3-down back. Plus, there's his off-the-field issues. I know everybody gets second chances and all, but we all wanted Odubel Herrera out of here so bad with the Phillies. You're telling me you want to bring in Kareem Hunt, who's got similar issues. So I don't want to I don't want to sound whatever, but I could care less about Kareem Hunt. Madison AM, from Minnesota, could he be an every down back? Maybe. He was when injuries put him in the starting role, and he played the backup role pretty well. Running backs, there's a few running backs on the market. The problem with the running back room is going to be that the free agents that are out there are going to get overpaid because there's not a lot of free agent running backs. It's a weak year to need a running back, and hence going to the thing, Miles Sanders is going to be really tough to replace. Can you replace him with a rookie? Say you bring back Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. You have Trey Sermon on your practice squad all year, someone like him. Is it really that easy to plug and play running back with this team? And again, the offensive line makes up for a lot, and having Jalen Hurts back there in the RPO helps, elevate running backs for sure. And Miles Sanders goes elsewhere and isn't quite as good because he's not playing with this line. He's not playing with Jalen Hurts. But again, 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns. That's all I keep going back to. It is extremely, extremely difficult to replace that kind of production. It really is. So I'm really concerned there at the running back position. But again, to the point of the show, we got to have faith in whatever Howie Roseman decides. Why don't we have faith? Why do so many people go from in Howie we trust to Howie can't get the job done this offseason? Let's have faith. We talked a little bit about Darius Slay there at the beginning there when Joe mentioned Darius Slay's name. You got Darius Slay coming, getting a big cost. I think he's like a $20 million. Hold on, I got Sport Track. He's counting $26 million against the cap this year. $26,111,000. He is going to account for almost 12% of our cap this year. Howie's got to find a way to renegotiate that contract or find a trade partner for him. I don't know. You're losing. You have him. You're losing Bradbury. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's a free agent as well. Marcus Epps is a free agent as well. Basically, our secondary next year right now on paper is Darius Slay at $26 million. It's Avonte Maddox, and it's Reed Blankenship. That's our whole secondary right now. So a lot of work's got to be done in it. And I know everybody wants to draft a cornerback at 10, and it could very well possibly happen. I don't know. I don't think it will. Howie's never drafted a cornerback that high before. It comes down to, and the thing I wanted to talk about last week, what you do with Slay, what you do with Marcus Epps, with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, with James Bradbury, with the draft there. It comes down to one key question on this defense. It's, do the Eagles have confidence in Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean to be starters on this defense? You're going to lose Javon Hargrave. You're probably priced out on Javon Hargrave. There's almost no way that the Eagles are able to afford him and afford everything else they need to do. If you could trust Jordan Davis to be one of your starters, I know he's not going to play 60, 70% of the snaps, but if you could be a starter and playing 50% of the snaps next year, if you have confidence in that, then maybe Howie does not need to draft another defensive lineman early. Howie Roseman did say that those guys are ready to play next year. Nakobe Dean, you have TJ Edwards and Kazir White, free agents next year. He drafted Nakobe Dean in the third round. Everybody was so hyped to get him in the third round. Now everybody's like, I don't know if he's ready. Well, Howie Roseman said at the Combine was going on this past week. And I want to shout out my man Joe Castro because he did a great job covering the Combine this week on Twitter. He went out there to Indy, so great job from him, man. But he said, Howie Roseman, at the Combine, that these guys are ready to step up. Well, if these guys are ready to step up, if Nakobe Dean can slot into a starting middle linebacker or weak linebacker position next year, and you can have confidence going in the year that he is capable of that position, it changes what else you could do. Jordan Davis, if he could start, then and you don't need to spend that big money on Javon Hargrave, well, then maybe you can sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and use that 10th pick on a cornerback. If you don't think Javon Hargrave or if Jordan Davis is ready, then you're going to have to draft another defensive lineman, or you're going to have to pay Javon Hargrave. If you pay Javon Hargrave, you lose Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. There's a lot of puzzle pieces here on this defense. A lot of puzzle pieces that have to be fit in somehow. But again, the point of the show is, why don't people have faith in Howie to figure this out? You got the Darius Slay. You could restructure his deal. You could trade him. Lane Johnson is also huge cap hit this year, $24.194 million. So 22% of your cap is going to Darius Slay and Lane Johnson. Can you find a way to renegotiate both those contracts that free up a lot of cap space? Rio saying, I would keep Chauncey Gardner-Johnson by all means. I agree with you. And I really think that this is the first shoe to drop in free agency. I think that you'll see Howie Roseman find a way to lock him up. He'll be 25 next year. He's a young. We've been wanting that safety replacement for so long. Yeah, he could be an anchor on this defense for a long time. But there's going to be a market for him. There's going to be a huge market for him. Does he test free agency, or does he sign right away with Philly to stay here? Does Howie break the bank? I mean, I think Sport Track had his projected cap value or salary cap value at like $13-14 million a year. Sure, I'm in. But if the market's really hot for him, and he's commanding $15, $16, $17 million a year, there's only so much money to go around. But again, you could spend that money on Chauncey if you're ready with Jordan Davis, if you're ready with Nakobe Dean to fill in and slot in right away as starters next year. Lions, yeah, there's going to be a lot of teams that want him. And I've already, it went from, it was a sure thing that Chauncey was going to be back next year to now if you start paying attention to Twitter and you start going through all the rumor mills, there are a lot of teams that are interested in him. So, again, you lose Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, it's going to be heartbreaking. But then maybe someone like Jesse Bates will be available. There'll be other free agents. Howie will not go into next year, I guarantee it, with a Marcus Epps, Reed Blankenship safety duo. That's not what's going to happen. But on this defense, like I said, it's going to come down to restructuring someone like Darius Slay or moving on from him. Honestly, it sucks to say. But if you're going to use that 10th pick on one of those cornerbacks in the draft, the Oregon kid, I can't even think of his name, then maybe you find a way to move on from him and you rebuild the secondary younger and cheaper. I don't know. This whole Howie Roseman, this offseason, he's got work to do on this defense. You think about all the free agents that this team has, how many of them are on the defense. Like I said, you got Epps, you got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, you've got Bradbury, you got your two starting linebackers. You got Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. That's one that you hear a lot of rumors that the Browns are interested in Brandon Graham. A lot of teams are going to be interested. He's 34 years old. Does he take a discount to stay in Philly? It's his last chance at a payday, probably. If I was Brandon Graham, I wouldn't be giving no discounts out. If I was any athlete, first off, let me backtrack here. If I was any athlete that was a free agent, the hometown discount, the home team discount, I don't play that game. If I got a chance to set my family up for the next 2 generations, I'm taking the most money. I mean, some things go into it, winning and stuff like that. But someone like Brandon Graham, played in 2 Super Bowls, won one already, I'm taking the money. I mean, I might not go to the worst situation. I might not try to go to the Houston Texans and win 2 games next year. But I'm going to a winning team that's going to pay me the most money. I'm not going to take a discount to stay in Philly just because I played there my whole career. That's just not who I would do. That's not what I would do. But also, Howie's got to make that tough decision. You just move on. Hey, Brandon, we love you. You're a legend in Philadelphia. This is what we got for you. If you can get more, cool. If not, this contract's on the table for you at this price if you want to stay. But Howie's got to have to make those tough decisions. We don't need to be in a situation where, if you remember back to the Phillies run from 2008 to 2011, and how many bloated contracts Ruben Amaro, not by his fault. I'm not blaming Ruben Amaro. But he gave out a lot of contracts to aging guys to keep the core around too long. And then you get stuck in a situation where it's 2015 and you got these old guys and you got no money left. The team, and you're patching the team together. Howie Roseman's got to make those same tough calls, maybe saying goodbye to Brandon Graham, probably saying goodbye to Fletcher Cox. Those things have to be made, those tough calls. But you got to have faith in Howie that he's drafted well. You lose Javon Hargrave. You got Jordan Davis, who you invested a high draft pick in last year. You also got Milton Williams, who you invested a third-round pick, I believe it was, 2 years ago, that played pretty well when he was on the field last year. Those guys are supposed to be getting groomed to step in and play. Now, I don't know if you want to go into next season with just those two guys, Hassan Reddick and whoever, and Josh Sweat. Can you really go into next year with your starting front four as Sweat, Reddick, Milton Williams, and Jordan Davis? You're going to have to add some depth there, but they could play. I would have faith if you run with those four. You renegotiate Slay, you bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and you invest in that second cornerback position. Look, that cornerback position, everyone's assuming is going to be a draft pick and a high draft pick. But again, Howie does not invest draft picks in that position, at least the high draft picks. Don't be surprised if I haven't even looked at who the free agent cornerbacks are this year. 2 years ago, we went Steven Nelson, and he filled in admirably on a one-year prove-it deal. Last year, he went to James Bradbury on a one-year deal. Don't be surprised if we keep Darius Slay on one side, that he doesn't just bring in another one-year prove-it guy. That's how I see it playing out. Excuse me. That's how I see it playing out on that secondary. He's not going to spend that elite draft pick there. You've got a lot of other holes on this team. That 10th pick, yeah, it depends on how the board falls. You might see a certain guy fall, and he might take a stab at a guy there. But don't be surprised if he trades back too. Trades back to 15, 17, something like that. Also got to think about the salary cap and the fact that the 10th pick is slotted. It's not like you're negotiating contracts. Everybody knows now. The contracts for these players are pre-slotted. The 10th pick is worth a lot more money on your salary cap than, say, the 15th pick. The 10th and the 30th pick is worth a lot more than, say, if he just trades back and gets 16 and then takes 30 and trades back in the second round. Depending on how the draft board falls, you might see him only take one first-round pick, more in the middle of the round, and then get a couple more second-round picks. How he's going to negotiate and wheel and deal and move things around as best as he can. Darius Slay is going to get renegotiated, probably. Lane Johnson, probably again. I feel like Lane Johnson gets renegotiated like every single year. In the year like 2047, we're going to have like a $300 million dead cap hit for Lane Johnson. It's going to be insane. But he's going to do it. Jake Elliott's another one that could get renegotiated. He's counting for almost $6 million against the cap, like 5.7, 5.8, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a Jake Elliott restructure as well on this offseason. So there's going to be room for them to free up money. It just depends on what you want them to spend it on and how and where. And we talk about all these defensive players, and then there's Miles Sanders. The offensive line. You got questions there. Until Jason Kelce makes up his mind and makes his decision, we don't even know what to do with the offensive line because you got Kelce, retire or not. You got Cam Jurgens, who can step in if he retires. Isaac Seumalo, just pretty much consider him gone. He's gaining steam as one of the better, guards in football, and rightfully so. But you can't pay him to. You just can't. I guess Cam Jurgens could slide over there if Jason Kelce comes back. Cam Jurgens probably could play guard. Andre Dillard's a free agent. Maybe you bring him back on a one more year prove-it deal. He proved he could fill in at guard on the left side when Landon Dickerson went out. So maybe you move Dickerson over to the right side. You got Drac Driscoll, who plays guard and tackle on both sides. Maybe he slots in there for Landon for Isaac Seumalo. But all that, see, this is the thing. Howie's got all these free agents he's got to manage. He's got the salary cap issues to manage. He's got the draft to manage, and he still has to figure out whether Jason Kelce's coming back or not. And again, this all is talk. I'm talking. He's got a very, very difficult offseason. I saw somebody tweet out the other day that we're going to go into a dark time now starting this year in Eagles history. Because it's going to take 4 or 5 years for Howie Roseman to rebuild this roster after going to the Super Bowl. Where did we go wrong as Eagles fans that all of a sudden everybody is so against having faith that Howie Roseman can figure this out? I know he hit every nail in the head last year in that offseason. The trade for A.J. Brown, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the James Brown. Every move he made was right last year. And it's hard to be that perfect every single year as a GM. But we got to have faith in him that he's going to navigate this tough run that he's going to go on. It's going to be tough. I get it. There's no reason to think that he can't figure this out. Again, we really, really, really need Jason Kelce to make up his mind first. Because then you can figure out the offensive line. And on the defensive side, it's can you keep Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? And if not, what is plan B? And then you go from there. Everybody wants to focus in on this draft. I don't know. Some people say the draft should actually be sooner, so it's right around the same time as free agency. But I'm not worried about the draft. Because you could pivot in the draft based off of what happens in free agency. We found a way. If we lose Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, say, then trade Darius Slay and then find a way to keep James Bradbury. I'm just hypothetically spitfiring here. Then maybe you don't need to draft that cornerback. Or you find a way to keep Bradbury and Slay and run it back. Maybe you don't need. Till free agency happens, till you figure out the Jason Kelce situation, I'm not even worried about the draft. I'm worried about what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Because, we're 9 days away from free agency starting. So the next 2 weeks, what happens? And how this team is shaped over the next 2 weeks to determine what happens in the draft. And we'll talk the draft as we get closer to it. I get that. But until you know what you're doing with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Javon Hargrave, all these names, the draft is meaningless to me, honestly. It really is. But again, it all comes back to Howie Roseman. I don't know about you. I have faith in him. I do. I think Howie Roseman can figure this all out. I'm going to have faith that he navigates it, that if we walk away from Miles Sanders, he's got a plan on what to do. I have faith that if we lose Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Lions or somebody else, that he's going to have a backup plan. Look, let's give him credit. I mean, he found Reed Blankenship out of nowhere. You know, they've been known to pluck these guys, these undrafted free agents, and find ones that can plug and play pretty quickly. Let's have faith. I really think that there's way too many negative energy vibes surrounding Howie Roseman at this point. It's kind of frustrating, honestly. Let's be honest. And one other thing I want to touch on, rumor was that, former Lions head coach Matt Patricia was being interviewed or considered or discussed as a linebackers coach on this Eagles team. There's a little history between him and Darius Slay. They're not the best of buddies. Did not get along in Detroit at all when Patricia was failing as a head coach there. A lot of people are against Matt Patricia. First and foremost, you know what? Position coaches. I mean, he's not being brought in here to be a defensive coordinator or a head coach. It's a linebackers coach. Whatever. First and foremost, the Darius Slay situation out of it. I think people are overreacting to it being a bad call. We could do much worse than Matt Patricia as a linebackers coach here. It's fine. It's not the veteran voice I wanted. I wanted a veteran head coaching voice in the locker room. It's not that. But if they do bring in Matt Patricia, does that maybe play into the fact of what Howie's planning to do with Darius Slay? I just said, there's the ability to restructure his contract, save some cap money. But don't be surprised if they try to trade him. He's 32, 33 years old, with a big cap hit. Maybe you find a way to move. We only traded him. We only traded a third and a fifth round pick to get him. But you don't have to get a first round pick from Darius Slay. When you get a second or third round pick for Darius Slay, Howie Roseman would do it. And then you don't have that problem in the locker room. Now, I'm not giving you that I want to see Darius Slay traded. Darius Slay and his wife, they're some of the best people in Philadelphia. They get this city. Paris Campbell, wide receiver 3, probably cheap. We didn't even talk wide receiver. We got to talk wide receiver. There's a quarterback. You're going to need a backup quarterback. Can you go into next season with Quez Watkins again? His value is never going to be lower, so you can't really trade Quez Watkins. Who's going to take Quez Watkins off your hands? Zach Pascal was a great, I think, an underappreciated wide receiver 4 on this team. I know he only had like 14 or 15 catches this year. He had less catches in games played. You could probably get Paris Campbell in here pretty cheap. But, we all want to say upgrade Quez Watkins, but what are you going to do with Quez Watkins? How are you going to move on from him? I don't know. You're going to trade him for a 6th, 7th round draft pick? Maybe. I don't know. I'd be okay with bringing Zach Pascal back on a 1-year super cheap deal. Played well on special teams. Does his job blocking as a wide receiver. Yeah, we need a new third wide receiver 3. Probably need to upgrade it. Paris Campbell might not be a bad option. But how he's going to work in that's later down the line, Joe. I'm not worried about wide receiver 3 or 4 right now. I'm worried about the more important positions that are going to take up the bigger chunk of the cap. I mean, you want to talk about, cap money, backup quarterback is going to be an issue. Gardner Minshew's a free agent. Gardner Minshew, I know he went 0-2 this year as a starter. That Dallas game, though, he really put up. He played pretty damn well in that position. And it was just the way it went. Actually, there was a timeout or a spiked ball instead of a timeout on that last drive. That maybe if they save it, save it down and blow that timeout, maybe we get in. Maybe we win that game. He was awful in the Saints game. That was just a bad game all around, bad game plan, etc. But you could do much worse than Gardner Minshew. But Gardner Minshew is going to want to try to get a starting job somewhere, or at least an opportunity to fight for a starting job, which he's not going to have here. So what do the Eagles do at backup quarterback? Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, I know. I've heard a few people throw his name around too. I have. And you could do worse than Jacoby. What's his price going to be? I mean, he's been brought into a couple places to be a transition quarterback multiple times. Does Jacoby rather come here to Philly as a backup, as a straight backup, no doubt about it? Or does he want to go somewhere to be a transition quarterback again? I don't know. We'll have to see what he costs. Do they draft a young quarterback again? I don't know. Minstash is going to want to raise. Yeah, he's going to want to raise. And you know what? I like the fact. I mean, I don't go Minshew mania crazy like a lot of people do. But I do like the guy. He's a good guy to have in your locker room. And you want a guy that, at his age, what's he, like 26, 27, Freddie? You want a guy as your backup quarterback that's content being a backup? Or do you want a 26-year-old that wants to start, so puts in the work every day so that when he is called upon, he's ready? I mean, you could do much worse, but you're not going to be able to keep Minshew for a couple $1 million. Let me see if he's listed on this Sport Track here, what we paid him this past year. It would be down at the bottom somewhere here. I don't even know. I can't see it. It would be more than that, so I might have missed it. But Minshew's going to command $6-7 million at least, maybe 10. No, I think he's a coach somewhere. He's coaching, I think, a quarterback coach or an offensive coordinator. I don't know. I know he was at least considered. He's not. He's not the answer. Jacoby Brissett, you could do worse than that. Just don't give me Joe Flacco again. I've seen a bunch of different names floating around and whatever. You do what you do there. But again, it's another question that Howie has to navigate this offseason. What to do, because in the NFL, 17-game season. I'm not saying this as a Jalen Hurts because he runs the ball and the way he plays, but in the NFL, almost every quarterback gets banged up at some point. It's a long, grueling season, and you add in the fact that Jalen Hurts rushes and has 700 yards rushing, and all the tush pushes and everything. He's gonna get banged up. You have to trust Howie. Continues to understand the importance of quarterback too. But you also, it's in the NFL in general. It's got to be an important position. Look, I don't know how long it'll happen, but you're going to see a day. It's going to come. Not this upcoming year, maybe not the next year, but you see someone like Patrick Mahomes and how he got banged up and he wasn't 100%, going through the playoffs because of the ankle sprain that he suffered in the division round. You got quarterbacks constantly banged up and sore late in the season. I'm going to tell you, yeah. Yeah, no. 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 Don't need that at all. But it would be intriguing. It would be fun. It would be entertaining as hell. Um, you're going to see a day. Mark my words. I don't know when it'll be. Maybe 2 years from now. Maybe 5 years from now. Maybe when they add the 18th game, because they are going to add an 18th game eventually. It will happen. You're going to see teams use the load management system in football with their quarterbacks. You're going to say if they get to 18 games, you're going to see teams invest more in that quarterback too. And you're going to see week 12 and week 14 or week 16, more and more frequently teams go to their backup quarterback, not just when the division's locked up or the one seat's locked up. You're going to see teams load management their quarterbacks because 18 games for a quarterback is a lot. Or they're just going to start putting red jerseys on these quarterbacks and not let them be touched at all. One or the other. But there's so many questions that Howie has to answer. And we're going to continue talking about them all offseason. I just still don't get the negative vibe towards him. I don't. We should have utmost faith. He has now brought us to 2 Super Bowls in 5 years. The utmost faith in Howie to make the right decisions. Or at least enough right decisions that keeps us contending. Hell, even if he makes every wrong decision, we still have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Devontae Smith. And a freaking top 2-3 offensive line in football, no matter what. You lose Jason Kelsey, you put in Cam Jurgens, it's still a top-tier offensive line. We might have to outscore opponents next year. That's fine. But even if he makes every wrong decision, he's made so many right decisions that we're still set up to be one of the best teams in football next year. We're still going to be the favorites to win our division next year. We're still going to be one of the favorites to come out of the NFC next year. So we got to have faith in Howie. We do. We absolutely do. So we're going to wrap up the Eagles portion of the conversation there because we're going to continue talking this. We got 9 days till free agency starts. And every day, more and more rumors are going to drop and more thoughts are going to drop on this. And we'll continue to talk about it. But I want to get into some of these other conversation points for today. And we're going to transition a little bit here to the Sixers next 15 minutes or so. Because Saturday night, finally, the reverse jinx worked. Sixers go into the fourth quarter down 6-8. Down 14 going into the fourth quarter. And I put out the tweet. Of course, bad takes. Everyone, no one understands how I love to put the reverse jinx out there. But I put out the tweet, just bench James Harden and Joel Embiid. I think it was actually still with 2 minutes left in the third quarter when I did it. I said, just put James Harden, Joel Embiid on the bench for the rest of the game. We aren't winning this game. And what do the Sixers do? Boom. Come back, outscore the Bucks by 17 in the fourth quarter to win 133-130 over the Milwaukee Bucks, who had won like 16 games in a row. And the Sixers were able to come back and just put together one of those fourth quarters. It's just, damn, what a performance kind of fourth quarter it was. You lost P.J. Tucker and Tobias Harris in the game. Tobias Harris didn't come out of the locker room at halftime. P.J. Tucker in the third quarter got hurt. It'll be interesting to see. They play the Indiana Pacers tonight. It'll be interesting to see. They're both listed as questionable. My thought is both are going to be sat tonight, how they start tonight's lineup. But Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and James Harden just carried that team. Embiid 31-10. Maxey 26 and James Harden 38-10. First time since like 1964 or something like that 2 Sixers had 30 points and 10 assists in a game. I mean, it doesn't happen. I think it's only happened like 6 or 7 times in NBA history. Both guys with 10 assists. I mean, it was one of those games that everything went wrong. And then your 2 stars, Embiid and Harden, and let's throw Maxey in there as well. Maxey played 41 minutes on Saturday night. You got to give him tip of cap to him. He had to be exhausted after that game. Some of the hits he was taking as he drove to the lane and stuff. James Harden on Saturday night, I think it's a conversation that doesn't get brought up enough. James Harden should be in the MVP conversation. Now, not 1, 2, or 3 with Luka and Joel and Nikolai Jokic. But James Harden should be in the conversation. I don't know what his odds are to win MVP, but James Harden is having an MVP season. And nobody's talking about it because he's not Luka. He's not Joel. He's not Jokic. And Saturday night just proves why he's still such a viable threat. I mean, 1 rebound shy of a triple-double. He didn't throw up a fake rebound at the end of the game like someone else did on Sunday. Giannis. You're not Giannis anymore. You're still Giannis to me. Anybody see that? Giannis at the end of the game was 1 rebound shy last night of a triple-double, so he dribbled the ball out and purposely bounced it off the rim and grabbed it with 3 seconds left. The game was over, and he just gave himself a little bunny to get his triple-double. Bogus. Bogus from Giannis Antetokounmpo there. Bogus. James Harden, 1 rebound shy of a triple-double. Only had 2 turnovers. I think that's, no mistakes from James Harden on Saturday night. 38 points, 10 assists, 9 rebounds, 1 steal, +5. And nobody's going to talk about him. I mean, literally, that was an MVP caliber performance on Saturday night. That fourth quarter was an MVP caliber fourth quarter from James Harden. But he's been doing it all year, so under the radar. And I think it's something that more people in the NBA circles need to be talking about at, 33, 34 years old, that James Harden's having a renaissance of a season. I mean, let's pull up his season stats as a whole here on my side here. I mean, 22 points a game, 10.6 assists, 6.2 rebounds. I want to see his shooting percentages. He's shooting over 40% from 3, almost 88% from 3, or free throw line. He's averaging over a steal a game, under 4 turnovers a game. James Harden is having so much better of a season than people realize, and nobody's talking about it. And Saturday night proved it. I mean, no offense to Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid had a good game on Saturday night. But we do not win or make that comeback on Saturday night without the fourth quarter that James Harden had. Without the game James Harden had. I mean, 5 of 9 from deep, 11-11 from the free throw line. I mean, how often does James Harden, outreach the free throw line from Joel Embiid? Joel Embiid's one of the most in the league. George Niang finally got off the snide on Saturday. That's huge. I made the joke a couple days ago, a week ago, that when George Niang's cold, and he was ice cold for a while there, that is he any better than Furkan Korkmaz? It was a joke. But really, when George Niang is ice cold like he was, he really doesn't do much. And on Friday night's game, the game they lost to the Mavs, I think he didn't even play at all. I think they DMP'd him, which was probably a smart move. And again, we've bashed Doc Rivers plenty on this show, but I've said it before that Doc Rivers is having his best season as a Sixers coach. And he saw George Niang and how bad he was struggling and sat him for a game. And he comes out on Saturday night, bang, bang, right back at it. So you got to give Doc credit for that. You do. I mean, he did what he did. He did it right. He pulled the right button. You look at the rest of this game. Obviously, like I said, Tucker and Harris got hurt and didn't finish the game. DeAnthony Melton's still struggling again, getting back on the bench. Josh McDaniels, a pretty positive effort coming off the bench. I think if Harris and Tucker sit tonight, which again, I really think they do sit tonight, I will say I would like to see Josh McDaniels fill one of those starting roles tonight. And you probably go 3 guards starting. But I don't know. I would almost like to see something different. I don't know. Get a little creative. You got the Pacers tonight. They're a good team. They're a good coach team. But as expected, they fell. They were a hot team early this season, but they fell. They're out of the playoffs right now. They're a game and a half out of the 10 seed. They've won their last game, but they're 4-6 in the last 10. They're not a great team. They're 29-36. There's a reason why we're favored tonight, and rightfully so. I don't know who you start tonight with the core 3, but Maxey, we're 6.5 point favorites tonight. Right now, Tucker and Harris are listed as day-to-day instead of out, so maybe there's a chance they play tonight. But what harm is it against the Pacers tonight, giving those guys the extra night off? I don't think it's a big deal if you give them off. You start Josh McDaniels with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and James Harden. Who do you put? You start Melton again? I guess you probably start Melton. It could be crazy to start Paul Reed, or I don't want to see George Niang start. You start. Oh, this is where this roster issue right now comes into effect, and you have so many wasted spots. You can't start Furkan. Can you start Daniel House and Josh McDaniels as your 3-4 tonight. Doc Rivers seems to be giving Daniel House some extra minutes lately, trying to get him back into the rotation. Do you do that? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. But regardless, whoever starts, if both those guys are out, Harris and Tucker, I think two good positive things can come out of it. One, you get some good minutes for some people like, House tonight or Josh McDaniel. I keep calling him Josh McDaniels. I can't stop saying it. It's Jalen. I every time I say Josh McDaniels, I hope people call me out, please, because I can't stop saying it. And I don't understand why. Because he's not Josh McDaniels, not even close. It shouldn't be an issue winning tonight's game, whoever starts. And if these guys are banged up, and Tobias Harris has been banged up a few times this year, it can't hurt to give him a rest too. And maybe, McDaniels, you start him over PJ Tucker tonight, you might get a little bit more information idea on who he is. And look, PJ Tucker, I know, come playoff time, he's supposed to pay off, the signing, et cetera, et cetera. We've been told that all year long. But is Jaden McDaniels any better than PJ Tucker? Maybe. More athletic, maybe. Maybe you see him get a bigger role by using him in a game or two here with PJ Tucker out. I don't know. It's something that's interesting to me, that maybe he's a starter on this team going down the line, maybe even the next year. Anyway, sorry. Apologize for that there. But yeah, that Saturday night game was a fantastic comeback. It was a great game, a great momentum swing. Because if the Sixers lose on Saturday night and they don't complete the comeback, then that would have been, so now they're 2-3 in their last 5 games. That would have been 1-4 in their last 5 games. That would have been a really bad momentum swing. But now you make that big comeback. You've got the Pacers tonight, and you've got some winnable games now. You got through that tough stretch. Remember, I was talking about it. You had a tough stretch, and you were able to go 2-3 in that tough stretch. Boston, Miami, Dallas, Milwaukee. That was pretty good. Now you got Indy and Minnesota on Tuesday. You got another back-to-back. So it's almost important to give Tobias Harris and PJ Tucker the night off tonight if they're close. So maybe they're back for tomorrow night, and you can give Joel Embiid the night off in Minnesota. Maybe you get James Harden a night off in Minnesota instead. And then you got a couple days off before Portland on Friday. You're back home in Washington. So you've got 4 winnable games here. I'm not saying they're pushover games. Indy, Minnesota, Portland, Washington, they're all back-end playoff teams. But they're winnable games, and you should be able to get some rest to some of these players after this really grueling stretch. And you should be able to get these guys some rest and still feel confident in the other guys to get the wins. We're coming down the stretch here. There's only what are the Sixers here? Let me page up here. They are 41-22, so that's 63 games. So there's 19 games left coming into the night. You should be able to get these guys some breaks. You've got a whole bunch of back-to-backs still on the schedule. Friday, Saturday, tonight, Monday, Tuesday, then Friday, then Friday, Saturday next week. You got another Friday, Saturday later in March. You got, that's it. So you got a couple more. You got to be able to get these guys some rest. So rest Tobias and Tucker tonight, and then you move on next week or tomorrow night to Minnesota and whatever. Would Will Barton be a better player than Daniel House? Probably. I'm not a Daniel House guy, Joe. I said the day we signed him that it was just Daryl Morey bringing another former Rocket in here. But it's too late. Has Barton still not been picked up? We don't have an open roster spot at this point, Joe. So to bring in anybody right now, you have to cut somebody. Obviously you can cut Daniel House, I guess. I don't know how the contract situation works there, but anybody would be better, honestly, at this point. But maybe Doc Rivers is working on something. Maybe Doc Rivers is trying to get Daniel House back in the rotation, back into something. Maybe if you're missing Tucker and Harris tonight, maybe we see Ferk. Maybe we see Ferk get a minute or two. Hell, maybe we see Mac McClung tonight. Mac McClung was the hero of the dunk contest. He was. They signed him to a 2-way. You can bring him up if you want. You're going to have 2 guys missing. You might as well bring somebody up. Test something out. Try to find a spark for the stretch run here. I don't know. The Sixers are going to win tonight. There's no doubt in my mind, knock on wood, Not going to put any mushes on this team or anything like that. The Sixers are going to win tonight in Indy, no matter who plays for them. Indy's pretty much fallen down, and they're pretty much done. All right, so I want to bring up a thread from this week here that I had this weekend. Travis Kelce, the Mac attack. Hey, why not, right? Why not? I don't see why not. All right, so this weekend, Travis Kelce hosted Saturday Night Live. Now, I won't lie, I didn't stay up for the whole thing, but I wanted to see how he did, and his monologue was not bad at all. Kind of funny, decent presentation. I won't say I was a fan of his suit he was wearing. I don't know what was that little thing hanging down the front of his suit there. Well, I'll say that. But it got me thinking, and I watched the first couple skits and the first commercial he did, like the commercial. It was for a or short video, whatever it was. It was for a self-defense class for bullies. His first skit with the dolls when he went on a tea date with his dolls. It was pretty funny. I was just tired and couldn't stay awake any longer, so I passed out before I watched the whole show. But it got me thinking, which Philadelphia athletes, past or present, would you like to see host Saturday Night Live and think would do a really good job at it? Now, hosting Saturday Night Live isn't for everybody, and I don't even know who even watches Saturday Night Live. I mean, I've heard through the grapevine their ratings are terrible this year. They've lost a lot of their star power. They're kind of in their rebuilding, retooling phase. But what people what athletes or personalities, because I did say personalities, and past or present, would do a good job from the Philadelphia. Now, obviously, Charles Barkley's done it, I think, twice in the past. Pretty funny. And I cannot believe how many people responded to this post and tweet. I mean, a lot of similar names. I'm going to blow through some of them, but I'm also going to stop on a couple of these names. I have my man Brandon App there saying Isla Brizgalov. It would be humongous big if he hosted. Yeah, that's not happening. A lot of Bryce Harper. I do not think Bryce Harper would make a good Saturday Night Live host. I think he's like that fiery guy on the field, but he's a very reserved guy, kind of, honestly. A lot of Brandon Graham, and I agree with it. I think Brandon Graham would make an excellent host. He's got the personality. You see him goofing around in the past with Derek Gunn and stuff like that. And I think Brandon Graham would be very good at it. Nick Sirianni, a few people. I don't know about Nick Sirianni, maybe. Booch, you said it. My man Booch, who, I learned this weekend you are not Italian. A name like Bucci and you're not Italian. What the hell? My whole world flipped upside down. But anyway, you said Kyle Schwarber. I think that would have been probably the best of the current class of Phillies at it. A lot of Jimmy Rollins. Probably he definitely would have the personality. Probably. Terrell Owens. For some reason I thought, then I realized it wasn't, that he didn't host Saturday Night Live TO. It was that Monday Night Football skit he did with the Desperate Housewife. We got Darius Slay. We had multiple mentions of Darius Slay. Like I would love to watch a reality show between Darius Slay and his wife Jen. They would be must-see TV, them doing their thing. A couple people said JoJo, Joel Embiid. I don't know if Joel Embiid would be a good Saturday Night Live host. I don't know. Joel Embiid's got a lot of personality. He does. But he'd be really hard to understand, I think, for an hour and multiple skits. He would be more one of those guys that would have to be just more like the facial reactions and the body language kind of telling the jokes. I don't know if you could handle a 5-minute monologue from Joel Embiid. I don't know, maybe. Brandon Graham again. This one I loved from my man Ray Mofo. Larry Anderson would have definitely been a great Saturday Night Live host. And we remember back in '93. I mean, he was the goofball on that team. All the different pranks he used to pull. I remember watching a 91 or 92 or 93 yearbook, from the Phillies, and there was this thing where he put like a matchbook in someone's shoe and lit it on fire in the dugout. I mean, some of the pranks he used to pull. Larry Anderson's a kick-ass guy, really nice guy. I remember in Clearwater one time, I was walking down the main street in Clearwater Beach, and he just stopped me. I didn't stop him. He was out for a jog, saw my Carson Wentz. Yes, it was during Carson Wentz hour. I was wearing my Carson Wentz jersey. He's like, yo, go Eagles. I'm like, yo, what's up? And we just talked for a few minutes on the street. So Larry Anderson definitely would have the personality. So I thought that was a great pull from Ray Mofo right there. My man Mike Barrera. he hosts a great union podcast. It's Scotty Hartnell. Maybe I haven't thought of Scotty Hartnell a lot. I had a couple people mention this name, and I couldn't believe it took a long time for this name to get dropped. That was the Magic Man, John Dornbos. John Dornbos. I mean, he's already was he second or third on America's Got Talent? He's got a stage presence for sure. John Dornbos as a Saturday Night Live host, abso-freaking-lutely. Let me get in on that for sure. Would love that. John Tortorella, pass. But my first reaction, and a couple people started naming them, was Tobias Harris. Well, no, I said it, and then other people jumped in. A combo, a co-host between Tobias Harris and Boban Marjanovic, or however you say his last name. A Bobby and Toby co-hosting gig. Now, we already know they're hilarious together. Boban has already, had his role in a couple movies. John Wick, he was an assassin, so we know he knows how to be on camera. Yes, his accent would be struggle, but not the violence, the physical humor would be there with him. And in my mind, I've already written the skit I want. And it's a bachelorette type thing where Boban's giving out roses to girls. And then he gives a rose to Tobias. And then he gives a rose to special guest Luka Doncic. And they're the final two to win Boban's heart. And I think the skit writes itself right there, and it'd be hilarious. So I think a Bobby and Toby co-host would be the ultimate Saturday Night Live from former Sixers and Phillies and Philadelphia people. A lot of more Darius Slay. You got my man Max Dingo saying Daryl Dawkins, Chocolate Thunder. Yeah, he might have. He might be dating myself. And then Nicole saying she's dating herself by saying this, but John Kruk. I don't know why saying John Kruk is dating yourself. Does that make me old knowing that it dates me too then? John Kruk, if you haven't seen him on Letterman back in '93, just goes to show how funny John Kruk really is. John Kruk would have been a fantastic host of Saturday Night Live back in the day. Hell, maybe even now. Let's see. We're keeping going. We got more Harper. And Embiid. I'm not sure about them. I don't. I don't know who this is. I said it. It looks like he might have been with the Union. Aurelian Collin. I don't know. I don't know my Union soccer well enough to know. More Charles Barkley. More Darius Slay. Here was a good one from my man Kenneth Eugene Fisher. The Tank. Hollis Thomas. That guy had some personality. I could see him doing some physical humor, falling through a table or two, falling through a wall, Chris Farley style. Hollis Thomas, he would have been interesting. My man Jason Lee, I love Jason Lee. Mike Golick, and I want to call out Jason Lee. I love Jason Lee. I love his show, Sports Scene. Great show on PHL 17. But when I said I liked Mike Golick as an idea, old version and new version of Mike Golick, player version, analyst version, he questioned whether I even was old enough to remember who Mike Golick was. Dude, I know who Mike Golick was. I'm a lot older than people realize. But Mike Golick, I think, from Jason Lee was a great pull there. Scotty and a few others saying Jalen Hurts and James Harden. I don't know about you. I think Scotty convinced me. I wasn't high on the Jalen Hurts as an SNL host. But then I realized that Jalen Hurts would put so much effort into it and learn because he's Mr. Work harder than everybody else. He'd figure it out. And he might have this little sly GQ humor to him a little bit. So maybe Jalen Hurts would actually be a really good host. More Brandon Graham, John Dormesh, John Kruk, Jason Kelsey. Obviously, I put in there that you couldn't say Jason Kelsey because obviously Jason Kelsey would be great at it. John Kruk, Jimmy Rollins, Joel Embiid, Kruk, Embiid, Bryce, Brandon Graham, Bryce, Barkley, Joel. A lot of repetitive names here. I thought it was a little fun. Ooh, a late ad. Hugh Douglas. Right there with the Hollis Thomas. Old Eagles defensive player. Yeah, I could see Hugh Douglas. Somebody also said Andy Reid. I don't think so. He's too dry to do it. Hugh Douglas, maybe. Yeah, I like it. Hugh Douglas would be a good one right there. Yeah, I could see that. Anyway, I thought it was a fun thread. Go check it out on my Twitter page, @BeardedKnowledge, right there. There it is. And check it out and add more ideas to it. I think it was a great conversation. There's a lot of great things. And I love it when a post just gets all that kind of interaction because it just means people are paying attention anyway. So I think we're going to wrap it up there for the day. Make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, turn notifications on. If you drop your comments on replay, I will go back and read as many of them as possible. I greatly appreciate anybody and everybody tuning in today. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. as always. Trending in the AM. I am Phil Stiefel on DSM Media here. Everybody have a great Monday. It's going to be nice out today. Another nice day. The weather's going to turn again. It's going to get cold again. Whatever. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk later. Go Sixers tonight. Let's get it. Let's get an easy win against the Pacers tonight. And everybody have a great day. We'll talk later.